Released as a launch title by Halo developers Bungie Studios, this game has a polarizing effect. If you played it even a year after its release, its graphics and controls would do little to impress. But for those who experienced it early on, Oni offered hours of fluid hand-to-hand and gun combat. People call the controls stiff and the environments bland, and while it was difficult to master hand-to-hand combat, the environments were in fact designed by professional architects hired by Bungie to create a futuristic but realistic world. Fights often took place in wide open spaces with up to a dozen enemies, and you had to mix melee attacks, throws and grapples, gunplay, and platforming in order to overcome the odds. The seamless integration of all types of combat, the plethora of moves at your disposal, excellent character animations, and innovative boss fights all made Oni one of the best games on the PS2. The third in the series, Tenchu Wrath of Heaven, is not only one of the best PS2 games ever made, it's one of the best stealth games ever made. It had a lengthy single player, 3 characters that resulted in different level progression and plot lines, diverse environments, and hundreds of moves. The excellent music and Kurosawa-like aesthetic all worked together with the refined gameplay to create a fantastic title. In a game that approaches perfection, Prince of Persia: Sands of Time could easily be considered one of the best games ever made. The gorgeous graphics and music made the city come alive, while the prince and Farah stand as some of the most well-written characters in video game history. Unlike the prince in the other 2 parts of the trilogy, where he stopped going to therapy, or the newest prince, where he was nothing but a douchebag who could never shut his cell-shaded pie hole, this prince was arrogant and naive, but appealing. Farah, one of the few female characters who isn't either bitchy or stupid, complemented the prince perfectly, which makes the ending of the game so much more poetic. The vizier was a typical choice of villain, but the game required nothing more. The platforming was flawless, and the Dagger of Time allowed you to make an occasional mistake without disrupting the flow of the game. In addition to that, the platforming and combat went hand in hand, unlike in the most recent entry in the series, where the 2 are kept apart at all costs. The only things wrong with this game were the difficulty, which was far too forgiving considering how hard the original game was, and the length, which allowed skilled players to complete the game in under 6 hours.
You're late, soldier. Now get in here and give me 20.
A game to keep Grim Fandango company in the underappreciated work of genius by Tim Schafer box, Psychonauts lived and died under the radar. While the platforming wasn't anything spectacular and the art style was somewhat ugly, the dialogue, characters, and plot were top-notch as they always are in Tim Schafer games. Hilarious writing, an excellent soundtrack, and that Tim Schafer flavor that can't be matched. If you can't find this one for the PS2 or Xbox, then buy it on Steam because it's honestly one of the most unique titles ever created. Exploding onto the PS2 in 2005, God of War met and exceeded all expectations. With its finely hewn and incredibly varied combat system, its well-written storyline rooted in Greek mythology, and the now iconic character of Kratos, God of War revolutionized the genre. Gorgeous graphics that push the limits of the PS2 and a soundtrack and scale that defines epic, it's a shoo-in for the top 5 PS2 games of all time. Metal Gear Solid 3's Subsistence is a perfect model of what an expansion of a game should be. Taking everything from Snake Eater and adding a user-controlled camera made the game much more versatile and enjoyable. The camouflage system was deep and innovative, the enemy AI was excellent, and the plotline is definitely the best in the series. Mostly because it had a lot less of the self-indulgent and unnecessarily complicated bullshit that Kojima typically includes in his games, and there was almost no mention of those goddamn Patriots. The game played like a stealth game should, discouraging direct confrontation and rewarding those who had the patience and skill to advance undetected. The characters and storyline were comparatively well written, leaving enough realism and historical integrity, but still making enough room for a bit of the strange and supernatural. Loaded with humorous and interesting Easter eggs and featuring great music and graphics, the game constantly brings new things to the table, and that kind of camp only found in Kojima titles. Another underrated gem that has gained a much-earned cult following, Shadow of the Colossus is unique in every way. The atmosphere, the design, and the 16 colossi will awe you. A prime example of highbrow video games, it was called a work of art by Pan's Labyrinth director Guillermo del Toro, along with its legions of fans. Now if only the studio making the movie would sign del Toro to direct, and then we might have something to look forward to. One of the best RPGs ever made, Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne characterizes what makes an Atlas RPG great. Chock full of typical themes surrounding the occult, perverse, and satanic, its innovative party system that allowed you to recruit demons that you meet on the battlefield made the battle combinations almost limitless. Nocturne is a joy to play and the kind of game that makes you glad you own a PS2. Final Fantasy X had many flaws, the franchise allowing you to switch out party members at will. The sphere grid was innovative and intuitive, allowing any character to specialize in any discipline. The equipment system, despite having specific types of armor and weapons for each character, was given amazing depth with the equipment modification feature, which allowed you to make your characters astonishingly powerful if you had the patience to find the necessary items to make these modifications.